We will take up the following item for approval. Action item 1A is the approval of the minutes of the April 8, 2024 meeting. I move the approval of action item 1A. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion, any questions? All in favor, please so indicate.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? This matter is approved. With no policy items on the agenda, I will address the information items. There are two. Information item 2A is the IT project update. Seb Formoso, Vice Chancellor for Information Technology and University Chief Information Officer, will present on this item.
Mr. Chairman, can I just say something at the beginning?
You may say anything you would like, sir.
Thank you so much. We thought it was important for all the resources that the board has allocated to the university in terms of technology, that we give the board a sense of all the different projects that we're working on. And today, Seth is going to walk you through a series of projects that are extremely critical to the operations of the university, both on the academic and operations side. And then one of the biggest project is the answer to CUNY first and what comes next in terms of the university. We want to bring the university up to date, and that's for the board's sake. It's for HR and finance is the new system, and so we wanted to just kind of bring the board up to speed on both of them. And we know that we have a short time, so we're going to turn it over to Seth.
Thank you, Hector. And as always, whenever we give you these updates, we start with our critical objectives, right? Our objective is to modernize, and today we'll talk about what we're modernizing. It's also to increase efficiency. We need to get better at running things. We got to be customer focused. We got to make sure that we remove the friction from the systems that our students and faculty use, and we have to do that in a protected environment. So I'm going to dive right in. Last year, you approved a very large project so that we could modernize the campus networks. As you recall, the campus networks were running very outdated technology. Over 1,800 devices were out of support, and we could not update them. And so today I'm happy to tell you that that project is well underway. We've added, if you count the number of rows up there, you'll notice that there are 17 rows, not 16 rows, because we added another campus to our scope for phase one of this project. And this past weekend, we completed the law department, and we currently have 3 schools underway. We have York, the College of Staten Island, and the Graduate Center. We are currently targeting to get those completed by the end of this month. And then we will move into the schools you see listed on the far left so that we can get those completed by the end of this year. And as we do this, every school is getting not only new technology, but they're getting a better improvement in service. The technology we're putting in is not only more secure, but is also faster. And we're able to now begin the process of centralizing management. The schools are still managing their own networks, but we can assist them. My team now has access to those systems. And the other thing that we're doing is we're looking at the cabling. So we're working with a number of schools that had outdated and very old cabling, and we brought in a cabling expert to help them. Our friends from facilities are helping us with capital dollars so that we can also improve the cabling for all the schools. And this is a result of one of the schools and some of the things that we've done. This makes it a lot easier to find what's broken when a network device breaks and be able to resolve it relatively quickly. So our overall project in the campus modernization is going well. I'm happy to report. Next, I want to talk to you about things that we've done to CUNY first, specifically to the student information system. And I'm going to take you through a few enhancements that we made and talk to you and inform you about the results of those enhancements. The net price calculator was something that we launched in early 2024. It's a financial aid estimator that helps a prospective student determine what would be the total cost of coming to CUNY. And we saw tremendous benefit of that over the past year, especially during the FASDA issues. We've had over 500,000 visits to the website for prospective students or current students to estimate what it costs to come to CUNY and try to figure out how to address some of their financial needs. The other thing that we've been working on has been how to automate the very manual process of getting a grade changed. And we created capability in CUNY First for the students to be able to ask for such things and get those reviewed by the appropriate faculty so that basically we can create an automated workflow as opposed to a manual workflow. And so far, we launched this earlier this year, and we've seen 700 grade changes already processed. Those are the ones that were processed. There were more requested that for whatever reason may not have been granted. And we've seen 1,500 grade reversals that were in the system due to non-attendance be reversed and appropriately set up for each student. So we're seeing real benefit to the students and to the faculty who have to deal with this process, which is now automated. Last summer, we did something that we're very, very proud of, and that is we made the CUNY First Student Information System, which was primarily have to be used by the students using a device like this one. You had to use a laptop or a workstation. We made it so that the students could do all those things that you see listed on a mobile device. So now the students can they can get to the application they need to get to, wherever they're, if they're on a subway, wherever they may be. So we made it mobile compatible. And that was a major effort. And we also upgraded the application. Those of you who you may recall that getting us upgraded to 9.2 was not a trivial effort. We also upgraded our system to the latest version, and we made that very transparent to the student body so that we could keep the application up and running for them at the same time that we made it mobile compatible. That we completed that work in about a year ago, and we saw real benefits to everyone over the summer. The other enhancement from last May, the counselor portal. What the counselor portal is a way for a high school counselor to have up to the second information about the senior from their high school who is applying to CUNY. Right? In the past, that information was provided to them in reports, which by definition are old, the minute that they get to that counselor in that high school. Now they can log on to a portal and they can look at the status of their seniors and whether they have completed or not completed all the steps to be able to apply and be enrolled at CUNY. So if you are a high school counselor and you're motivated to get as many seniors into a school, are you going to try to get them into CUNY where you have dynamic up to the second information? Or are you going to try to get them into another school where the information you have is on paper and you have to crawl through it to figure out what's the status of your students? We've seen real value from our meetings with the Department of Education about this, and we're going to be making another enhancement later actually on June 2nd of this year for the students, as well as for the counselors. So to date, we've had 840 high schools access the portal. Not all those high schools are in New York. We've seen high schools as far as South Carolina access the portal to check up on how those high schoolers are doing in trying to get into a CUNY school. And we've had over 48 enrollment applications that we know have been processed through the 48,000. So this has been a massive effort. We work very closely with Alicia's team to test it, to verify that before we gave this to the high school counselors, it was going to meet their needs. The other thing that we've been working on, and we launched it earlier this year, has been a way to automate our ability to transfer credits for students. This has been, as most of you know, a pain point. And again, working with the provost team, we were able to create some capabilities within CUNY First. So now the students can go to CUNY First, request a transfer, and that transfer happens, it's tracked and can be managed automatically, and that transfer request is presented to the appropriate people who have to approve it. If approved, it goes into their transcripts. So far, our writer team, our data analytics team calculates that this is saving an average of almost a little bit over $1,200 per student. But what we're looking at is that we've had 27,000 students since January ask us to execute approximately 86,000 transfer evaluations. In a very short time frame, we're seeing tremendous volume and benefit to be able to put this functionality in place. Now I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to talk to you about security. So last time, you've seen this chart before. The last time I showed you this chart, we were around 80,000 devices that we are actively monitoring. Just as a reminder, actively monitoring means that we have computers monitoring the devices 24/7. And when those computers detect an anomaly, a problem, we take action. We disable that device so that we can mitigate our risk. We do not wait until 8 o'clock in the morning for someone to come to work to shut down things that are a problem, which is something that we had been doing prior to putting the Security Operations Center in place. You're going to be wondering, what's that blip? Why did we go down in February? So as a result of what happened at Baruch late last year, Hector asked me to institute a more aggressive security posture. So what we began to do was, what we were doing before the last Baruch incident, we were notifying a campus, IT staff, that we had noticed a problem and we were waiting for the appropriate staff to take action. That was not an appropriate best practice. So what we did is we let the technology do what it can do. The technology now disables things. So what happened was, every device that was inappropriately protected was blocked and disabled. And that's what that dip is. And then when the IT staff in the campus corrected the cybersecurity vulnerability, it was put back online. And that's why the line then began to climb up again.
And for the board, if the IT staff, this is something the chancellor pointed out to me, at the campus does not have the resources, then we provide some additional resources to help them sort of fix that particular problem. But that really it really puts a stop to if we would have prevented what happened at Baruch, because in some ways we have multiple awareness that were ignored, and that created the problem.
What does the line represent? What does the line?
How many devices, either laptops or servers, my team is monitoring 24/7? So we're monitoring approximately 90,000 devices.
But we're also monitoring over 900 million
So-
threats that come in?
Let me address that for you. So the question that you would ask, as Hector brings it up, is, so you're monitoring 90,000. How many do you have? So we have put technology into the environment to detect all the devices. We have detected 900,000 devices on the network. Now that includes, if your watch right now is on the Wi-Fi, we see that. It includes every device brought in by a student. We're working right now to figure out how many of the delta between the 90,000 and the 900,000 are CUNY-owned devices that I'm responsible for, so that we can put the monitoring technology and get that. We think that we're going to be, when we're done, about 100 to 120,000. Right, we're not assuming that we are watching everything we need to watch. In fact, we're assuming we're not, and we're doing a lot of work to mitigate that risk.
So in terms of messaging to the campuses, a machine I'm familiar with got caught up with some false positives and was taken offline for over 24 hours and impacted a certain number of classes. The campuses weren't that well aware of what was going on, is my understanding of it, and maybe I'm only hearing that third hand. So was there adequate messaging for the campuses to know they needed to reach out to your office perhaps for guidance?
No. So before we did this, John, we had every CIO. Subsequently, I had every campus IT security person at a face-to-face meeting. We had over 60 people come. We've held one of those meetings every single month, right? I'm very, very concerned about communication because it can make the project fail. But I would love to know in which scenario we were not communicated, because we over-communicated to the IT staff, not just to the CIO. And I made sure that I clarified to them that I expect them to communicate to the faculty and to everyone in the campus who needs to know what we're doing so that we can mitigate the negative impact of lack of communications, because the technology is actually working quite well. But I'm aware that people were surprised in certain campuses, and we went to those leadership and says, what happened? Why was the communication that we made to you and all of the information that we gave you and the form and the email formats that we gave you not sent out by you or the provost to every single faculty member? Because we don't want to repeat that mistake as we make additional enhancements to cybersecurity in the future. Our objective is to over-communicate.
Go to the next one.
So quickly, denial of service, we upgraded this last year. We're seeing really good results, and we measure this very simply. I have not had to call Hector to talk to him about the fact that we're shutting down a system because of a denial of service attack in 12 months, right? The system is working, and we're keeping the bad guys who are, as you can see by the numbers, regularly attacking us from actually impacting our ability to do what we do. So just as a summary level, this chart represents the activity at the SOC from October 1st until the end of March. And you can, basically it's telling you that we're getting a lot of alerts, over 440,000. The system triages those alerts. We convert those into a little bit over 9,000 incidents that we need to investigate. That is done by humans. Some person has got to look at that to understand whether we have a problem that requires further action. And if we do, then we generate an incident that gets reported to me as a possible security incident. And of those, then we look at it further, and we got down to 319 endpoints isolated. What did that mean? Either a computer at someone's desk or a server had to be blocked from doing what it was doing in order to clean out a cybersecurity malware or virus. So our system is basically filtering problems until we get it down to the things that actually require us to take action. The last chart at the bottom, it says proactive threat hunting, 136 issues. So think about what we built with the technology as a fence around CUNY. And if anybody tries to violate the fence, my system blocks them. What pro threat hunting is a guard on top of a tower. So we have Palo Alto looking out into the internet and letting us know if there's any activity that, while may not be an actual attack that we can sense with our alerts, something that we should worry about, right? We're listening for chatter. And we've had 136 reports, 99 were no big deal, 37 generated investigations by my team as to what was going on, what were people doing, and what should we be concerned about that could lead to a higher risk that we could mitigate. So we protect ourselves not just by building a fence around the house, but also by looking beyond anyone who might be approaching the fence as to what they might be trying to do. Preemptive, basically monitoring. And that's how we monitor the SOC. Lots of people that work in my team and in Palo are doing a bang-up job of keeping this going. Next year, or this year, I apologize. So we need to complete the campus modernization, the first chart I showed you. That whole chart's got to go to green. We're building a voice over IP network. Our voice systems in the campuses need to improve. I'm building a central voice over IP cloud service for the campuses. We need to centralize all the backups. The campuses are taking backups locally. We need to get those backups so that we can take those backups and keep them in safe manner here at CUNY Central. We're going to improve the portal I told you about for those high school counselors. We are going to develop and deploy a fast app for the New York City Department of Education, and we're going to deploy on June 2nd. We're in countdown mode. We're in testing mode right now. We want to be able to have those seniors apply in a much better way, in a faster way. We're also going to create and deploy a campus-branded student portal. We're working with the Student Senate to make sure that they can help us test it so that we can give this to the campuses so they'll have a same look and feel on how to create community within the student body. And we're working really closely with the medical school to separate them from a network and a security perspective. We're physically separating them so they will be like every other campus, a physical separate network so that in case there's any problems, we can contain that or they're not infected by anyone else. That is what I had today for you. Any questions before I turn it over to my partners from Deloitte?
There are 17 schools on the campus modernization chart. What about the other schools? Are another 10 or 11?
Yeah, so the other schools, when we set the project up back in 2023, were already in a good place. They didn't need to be refreshed. But as we approach the end of this project, those schools are aging, and they're calling me. So we are preparing, we're preparing how we're going to do that, and when are we going to bring the resolution to the board to begin to prepare those schools. We don't want to overlap the projects too much, but it's coming. Whether it will come this year or early next year, I yet don't know. But we're going to deal with those 10 schools.
Other questions? Thank you, Seb. We'll go to item 2B, which is CUNY Works, and we have Brad Cobbs from Deloitte Consulting with us. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
good afternoon, everybody. Holly Rice is here with me as well as my partner in crime for our project. We'll skip past here. So, as Seb mentioned earlier, CUNY First Today, HR, payroll, finance, student, all in a centralized system. Moving forward with Workday, which is a cloud-based ERP, HR, finance, and student system. We're going to be pulling out the HR and the finance functions, leaving student and CUNY First. That will move to Workday. And so, as you can imagine, just the scale of what that means across all of CUNY, right? Just to take a look at some quick numbers here. This is what we know today. There are over 143 different disparate systems or shadow systems that are out there. And so our charge here is to essentially get rid of all the shadow, move everyone into a single centralized platform for HR, payroll, finance. As we kind of talk about where and how we got here, kudos to the entire CUNY ops team. So Hector and his team, as far as the prep work that went into doing this. This is not a small endeavor. I've done a number of these now, and just the prep that went into it, I have to give the team kudos here. This is a bit of an eye chart, but the main takeaway here is that this is just the scale of just the number of people that are going to be involved in this project. This implementation. We had a kickoff last week. There were over 100 people in the room and approximately 400 online. So, and that's just for the kickoff as we get into designing the system.
And one thing to add is every day we learn more and more. For example, Professor Benton brought to our attention the chairs of departments and how we need to embrace them into this process. So we're now having that dialogue.
Absolutely.
So as we,
Thank you very much. I think they'll really appreciate it.
no,
Yeah.
no, sure.
Absolutely. Timeline, again, hit this high level. It's a 2-year timeline to do all this work. As you can see, we're about 3 months in. Year 1 is all about designing and building the system. Year 2 is testing and training everyone before we go live. All right, so that's the easiest way to think about it. So where we are today, we've wrapped up our plan phase, kind of planning all the different activities that are going to happen over the next 2 years. As I said before, we're in this architect and configure phase where we design and configure the system. And then as we get into next year, starting in January, will essentially be a year of testing and training. And Holly's going to be leading our change management training activities as part of that. Scope-wise, as we talked about, finance and HR, it also includes payroll, so integrating with the city and the state, and also making sure that we can pay out work study as well. All right. Change management. 3 pillars. As I said before, Holly's going to be leading this part of it for us. Readiness, meaning down to the campus level, down to the person level, depending what obviously what your job is. How ready are you for the change? How ready are you for the new system? Training, making sure that everyone, regardless of whether or not you have a role that you're going to be doing in Workday, or you're just a regular everyday person that's checking on your HR record, right, updating your own information, that everyone is trained on the new platform. And of course, last but not least, I love what Seb said earlier about we take communications seriously. Communications, not only from a program level for all of CUNY, but also campus-specific communications as well. Training. We take a multi-modality, but there are different approaches to training. Not everyone learns the same, and we realize that. And so we take an approach of as kind of where we meet people where they are. All right, and that's ultimately that's our approach to training. So everything from online to in person to if you like it, on your phone, if you need it in a different way, we meet people where they are.
And Brad, just
Yep.
really quickly, the training approach is that it's happening throughout the duration of the 2 years. So it's not going to be 4 months before we deploy. We're showing, telling, seeing, letting people see the system and understand it by the time they go to end user training. So they'll be familiar with what they're about to see.
Absolutely. That's okay. And then last, of course, not least, is how do we engage the campuses? So 3 different levels or 3 different work streams, if you will. So there's project management. Each campus has a lead. Generally speaking, it's typically the operational VP at each campus. So they're kind of responsible for making sure that their campuses, the activities for their campus is happening. There's just the general implementation activities as far as, we need their input on requirements and how processes work and making sure that they were able to configure that in the system.
I think what's particularly important about this is we have 25 different type of campuses.
Yep.
And what's the beauty about this program is each of these systems will be tailored to that particular campus and their needs and how they run things. But we'll be able to, the board could ask us questions about different things within HR, finance. We could get that information with just pressing of a button and being able to get that information, as opposed to having to call the campus so they could go into their shadow system and get us whatever information we need. So I think that's the beauty of it all, is it's separate but it's also centralized in some ways.
Single centralized platform for operations, yep. And last but not least, as Holly talked about, change management and all the different activities we do a part of that. Again, it's tailored to the campus as they need to. So that's really it. So went through about 10 slides in I think 30 seconds there. So happy to answer any questions, but that's I've done this before. So.
Has there been any pushback, any resistance from the campuses saying it's working all right for us, don't change us, or are they all on board?
No, I mean, I think people, I won't call it resistance. I think what you will find is the campus have system that they've created in order to navigate their situation, and they want assurance that this is going to be better than what they have. And I think for the most part, we have been able to show them that that's the case. And I think, frankly, what's really unique about this is also that there's been a lot of major systems like ours, as complicated as ours, who have done this work. So we're able to bring sort of best practices into that discussion. So it allows for a much better way to sort of navigate it.
Well, a big challenge, but it's necessary, is that this is going to change over in January. In the middle of a fiscal year, in the middle of an academic year, not in the summer when we're closing this down and that down. And there's a whole rationale for why this is probably better for this, because in the summer they're actually are closing down and trying to catch up with the auditors, and I mean there's a lot, but that I think creates some anxiety because people think, no, let's do it in the summer. I also think that with respect to the department chairs, if you think about the most hiring and firing decisions that are made with the greatest time pressure, it's hiring and firing adjunct faculty just before the beginning of the semester because your class didn't make. I need to move you into that class because she got over-enrolled. And all that happens in a giant crunch, and some of the transactions just fall out of the back of the truck. And so that's where I think if the chairs can remember this project as a project that actually helped them to do their jobs better and more transparently, that would be excellent, because they're on the front line of a lot of the HR and finance that we do. But it's not obvious until you understand what we're like. But that's, change management may need some attention to those. These are the department chairs that are heading up, like philosophy in this campus versus French in this campus versus chemistry in that campus. And they're very busy, and their work is, the work processes need to be streamlined and improved.
So, two things. Number one is we're gonna engage our provost in a discussion about how faculty navigates this, because faculty, as I've been informed, that faculty has a unique way of navigating both HR and finance, so we need to sort of incorporate that, so we're gonna be sort of doing that, but along the lines of the chairs and how they navigate it, and I think that is something that, I think there's a lot of great answers for it, and I think,
I am sure there are.
and we're pretty comfortable we can get that done.
Will there be a period where the old system and the new system are running in parallel at the same time? So the transition,
Yeah, so they won't run in parallel for the same time. What'll happen is, can I go into a lot of detail about this, but basically what'll happen is December-ish of '26, we'll start to trickle down on the transactions that kind of go through, in this case, CUNY first. At the same time, we'll bring up, in this case, Workday, and we'll make sure that those are getting into Workday before we go live. Once we go live, besides like doing things like closing the books and some other things, HR, finance.
So
type
let
stuff,
me try to-
It won't. It's not going to run in parallel though.
Let me give you another different way of approaching. Around April at CUNY, we begin to send notifications out to everyone. Get all your procurements in, because we're starting to close the books. So in some ways, we're gonna be closing the books.
It's actually a
little
similar
bit.
process to that. I see what you're
Right,
saying. Yeah.
we're gonna be closing the books around December, letting people, and then sort of starting all over again. So in some ways, we're gonna have almost a mini fiscal year that then ends again in June 30th.
Yep.
And sort of convert it that way.
So there's no campus by campus rollout the way we did with, say,
No.
Bright Space.
All at
It's just
once.
all at once.
Everybody together.
That Band-Aid's going off,
Yep.
and that's it.
That day, I'll make sure the chancellor has
Yeah,
Bustelo and, but it is,
More than Busteros.
well, I'm not gonna, well, public meeting.
Provost?
I just want to add and echo what EBC Batista was saying and engaging academic affairs, and the conversations was for department chairs, the ability to run an adjunct report and workload with the Appendix E, and how can you track all of that? And all of that information being in one, how powerful that will be for department chairs who don't have this information but have to make decisions and anticipate that. So
And if you gave any department chair in CUNY, give them a quiz and ask them what their budget is, and they will fall on the floor, because they have this idea that they're spending something, but they have no idea what it is. And they have no idea when they're getting close to the limits.
Got it.
Anything further? I'd like to thank you both for the presentation. There being no further business before us, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, any opposition? We are adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you.